welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. It's time for a top 10, and this is a top 10 personal picks for TV shows, specifically live action TV shows. And this was actually done by Brad from Broncojuggalo Talks Movies. He didn't really do this as a tag especially, but you know, I felt compelled to do my own list. So if you fancy doing this, feel free, but obviously, as I say, Broncojuggalo was kind of idea here. So he's basically asked the top 10 kind of he did his top 10 own list of live action kind of TV shows. I'm actually going to slightly tweak it. So it's the same thing, but I'm going to kind of have to say this, where it's TV shows that have had at least 2 series, 2 seasons, I guess you call it in the States. So if it's just one and done, and I'm thinking of, because I'm watching Swamp Thing at the moment, and I know that's got cancelled even after the kind of like just after the first episode, and it looks pretty good. But that's just, it's going to be just 10 episodes, so I don't know if I can count that as a kind of like, or things like that as a TV show. So for my list, it has to have something that's had at least 2 seasons or more. Anyway, so we'll start off with number 10. I don't really like doing honourable mentions because to me that's not a top 10 list. But I will say my number 10, I was kind of toggling between 2. I'm going to say Knight Rider.
A shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist.
It covers obviously the classic 80s science fiction show that starred obviously David Hasselhoff and the talking car Kit. I was going to say, realistically now I would not really want to watch Knight Rider. And I was going to replace it with the Orville, which I feel I genuinely like and kind of watch every episode and would much rather watch these days. But I'm trying to think of my all-time top 10 list here. And I used to watch Knight Rider when I was young and at school. And I love that show. Even though I don't love it now, I know I loved it back then. So I am going to put it in my top 10. Even though it's not something that I would watch nowadays. I know I really, really liked that show when I was a child. So I will put that in this list because it was a big thing back then. Number 9, I'm going to go with The Walking Dead. Now I'm going to cheat and say I'm going to put Fear of the Walking Dead in there as well, because I know this show gets a lot of grief because, you know, it does kind of tread water to a certain degree, but I actually still enjoy it, and I actually prefer the current season and the last season of Fear the Walking Dead more than the kind of the base show. So that's number 9. Number 8 is a British comedy TV show called Spaced.
The first rule of Robot Club is you do not talk about Robot Club. The second rule of Robot Club is you do not talk about Wait, I got that wrong. The second rule is no smoking.
And this one is, I guess, most famous for Simon Pegg, Nick Frost and Edgar Wright, who went on to direct obviously things like Shaun of the Dead. And it's very much that type of kind of, sort of, if you've watched those films, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, etc., it's very much that sort of style of comedy and filmmaking, but in a TV series. In fact, there's an episode of this that actually inspired Shaun of the Dead. Number 7 is Daredevil. Now we're talking the Netflix show.
Let these people out of here.
Arguably, you could say this isn't a TV show; it's a streaming show, but I'm going to count it. You know, it's a serialized show. So yeah, that ran for 3 seasons. Sadly cancelled now, but to me, the strongest overall of the Marvel Netflix shows. Jessica Jones season 1 was very good, and I enjoyed The Punisher. But I think quality-wise, 3 seasons of Daredevil all were very, very good. And I'm sad to let go. This was must-see appointment television in my opinion. Number 6, we're coming back to the UK, and this is going to be another comedy show. This is the Inbetweeners.
I think maybe at 8 something. Could we maybe sit down and talk about us? And have you got any Nurofen? It's just like... Oh dear.
Now they have done an American remake of this that lasted just a few episodes, but I'm talking the British original, which lasted 3 seasons, I want to say, and 2 movies, although the second movie is pretty poor. But the actual TV series, especially the first 2 seasons, are absolutely brilliant. Very British. I don't know how the humour would translate across the pond, but if you're into vulgar humour, then I would suggest checking it out if you are into that. So that is the Inbetweeners. Number 5, we're getting into my all-time favourites now, and I'm going to go with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Hi. Nice. Look who's got a bad case of Dark Prince envy.
I have no interest in you. Leave us.
No, we're not going to leave you. And where'd you get that accent? Sesame Street? 1, 2, 3. 3 victims.
Xander. I'm pretty sure that's Dracula.
I was a huge fan. Now, initially, when I started, they released a few episodes on VHS when season 1 had just aired in the UK, and I rented it out at Blockbuster. And I had seen the original movie that obviously the TV series was based on, and then we got Sky Satellite TV, and then season 2 was on, and I started watching it from then, and I loved it. And I thought it's a great show. I was gutted when it got cancelled, but we had a good few years, and obviously we had the Angel spin-off show a year after that, which I enjoyed, but I didn't quite like it as much as Buffy. Number 4 is Game of Thrones. I'm sure this is going to be on everyone's list if they do something along the lines of this. Needs no introduction. Obviously, a great fantasy show with really high budget production value, based on a series of books by George R.R. Martin. Obviously, the last season was a little bit of a letdown. I didn't hate it as much as some people, I don't think, but I do agree that it was a bit of a wet squib compared to a lot of the series. Number 3, my top 3, this is genuinely my favourite 3 series now, but these ones I feel I'm not going to put anyone else's list. Number 3, we are talking 24. This is a fantastic real-time action counter-terrorism drama with Kiefer Sutherland that lasted many seasons. I'm not quite sure how much. I think it's 8 seasons and a spin-off. Absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was so addictive to me. I think I bought the DVD set initially, having not watched it, and then just me and my girlfriend at the time, we just got so addicted to it. It's like, one more before we go to bed, one more. That was fantastic. Number 2, this to me is it's my second favourite TV show of all time, Tour of Duty.
Okay. No way, man. No way.
Okay, look, sit tight. They can't get to us here.
Yeah, now we can't get out. Baker, what's going on up there? Focus, Sarge!
Now, if you're in the UK, there's a good chance you may not have heard of this, because it was only ever aired very late at night in the UK, back, in the early 90s, I believe. And it's about the Vietnam conflict, and it was around for 3 seasons. The first season certainly being the best, and followed, obviously a group of soldiers as they had their trials and tribulations in Vietnam, in country. Loved this series, absolutely adored the characters. I thought the acting was so good. Obviously, it's toned down for TV audiences, but it's such relatable characters, and they touched on a lot of social and political issues, obviously at the time. So, really enjoyed Tour of Duty. In fact, I'm actually currently reviewing all of season 1 by one. It's taken me a little while, but yeah, I enjoyed this show immensely. Number 1 is probably, if you're in the UK and you were around in the 80s, you would have heard of it. Outside of that, you may not have. And this is Robin of Sherwood.
My lord! Gisbert!
This ran for 3 seasons. Now, seasons in the UK are a lot shorter than they are in America. I mean, there's like 6 episodes in a season most of the time. And this one starred Michael Praed initially as Robin Hood, and then Sean Connery's son Jason Connery as a different Robin Hood in the 3rd season. And this famously had Clannad doing the kind of the music for it. It was a kind of a mystical take on the kind of the Robin Hood mythos. And actually, this series is actually the one that is credited for introducing the Saracen character into Robin Hood mythology, which has then sort of carried on through kind of more modern takes. Obviously, you have Morgan Freeman in the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and this was because this show introduced a Saracen character purely because they really liked the actor when he was on set, and they wrote him into the series as a regular, and that was as simple as that. And from then on, the majority of Robin Hood adaptations have had a Saracen character because this one did it first. But it is a great series. It's a little bit kind of like low tech by today's standards, but I just love it so much, and I can rewatch this series almost endlessly. It's so rewatchable to me because the characterization is so strong. And you've got Ray Winston as Sir Will Scarlet, probably the most recognisable these days, I would say. But there are a couple of familiar faces. So, you know, that's my top 10 list. Probably kind of not the some ones that I should imagine a lot of people haven't heard of. What is your top 10 list? Like I said, this is not a definitive, objectively the best list. It is what you like personally. So that is my top 10 list. So thank you to Brad for obviously inspiring me to do my own list, and obviously feel free to do yours if you so desire. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.